Getting a visa to the UK is only the beginning of what sometimes seems to be a very long and tortuous journey to settling in the United Kingdom. I was looking at this area to see the options that is available to an immigrant to acquire permanent residence in the UK. I was looking at it and it dawned on me that there are so many other people out there who would need information around this area. So if you are one of those people who wish to know how to obtain an indefinite leave to remain in the United Kingdom, then this is the right video for you. Stick with me in the next few minutes. Let us see what we can discover together. So precisely in this video, we are going to be looking at the current UK immigration rules about indefinite leave to remain in the country, as well as the current Home Office regulations regarding UK permanent residency. To get all this and even more, you will need to watch this video to the very end. Without any further delay, let's get started. Since the UK left the European Union and became yet a country on its own with its freedom to legislate on its immigration rules, a lot has changed in the immigration landscape significantly. This affects the way and manner you acquire indefinite leave to remain in the United Kingdom. I went looking at this area and I found several options through which you can achieve this objective. There are many of them, but I had to choose and pick. And I have four major options that I have selected that I know that relates to my audience. Number one, I want to discuss is what is called 10 years route. That is number one option. Now, this is an option that gives you UK ILR. When I say ILR, I mean indefinite leave to remain. Through 10 years route, you can acquire ILR in the UK. Now, what is this 10 years rule? I'm going to explain it just in one sentence. It is opportunity for you to acquire ILR in the UK if you have lived in the UK for up to 10 years. It is also called the long residence rule. Now, it is not automatic that after living in the UK for 10 years, you will acquire ILR. It does not happen that way. There are conditionalities that you must meet before you are entitled or you become eligible for this ILR under this route. I'm going to give you an outline of all these conditionalities or eligibility criteria that you must meet. Now, I have a list of them here on my phone. I'm going to read it out to you. Now, the first condition you must meet is you must have been in the UK lawfully during this 10 years period. That is number one. It's from the explanation I gave. This is very self-explanatory. You must have been in the UK for at least 10 years before you will even be in line to be considered at all. But like I said, the fact that you've been in the UK for 10 years does not automatically qualify you, but that is the beginning. Then the second condition you must meet, you must not have stayed over in the UK. You must not have stayed over. What does that mean? That is, your entry into the UK must not have been through certain category of visas which are not eligible for long stay. The most paramount of this category of visas is the standard visitor visa. If you have arrived in the UK through the standard visitors visa, which could be for 6 months, 2 years, 5 years, or even 10 years, as long as it's that category of visa, standard visitors visa, if all the time you spend in the UK based on this visa does not qualify, it does not count for the 10 years. Then condition number three, you must not have stayed out okay, during this period more than 184 days at a time. That is to say, you must not have traveled out of the UK at any given time and stayed there for 184 days. Yes, you are allowed to travel out of the UK, but all the time you spend when you are out of the UK at a particular time cannot be more than 184 days. Check that in a month, you know what it gives you. Then condition number four, which is similar to number three. During these 10 years, you must not have stayed out of the UK for 548 days in total. So even if you traveled out of the UK, cumulatively, you must not have spent more than 548 days. What does that mean? What the first one I said is about staying out of UK for 194 days at a particular time when you travel. But this is cumulatively within these 10 years. No matter how many times you have traveled out, all the number of days you spend out of the UK put together would not have been more than 548 days. Now put that in months, you know what it gives you. Then number 5, if you are aged between 18 and 65 years old, as at the time you are applying for the ILR, then you must take the life in the UK test and also show you have sufficient English language skills. This is a very common word. There's nothing to explain in this area. So there are 5 conditionalities I have mentioned now for you to qualify under this 10-year route. All of them you must meet before you can lay claim to eligibility for acquiring UK indefinite leave to remain under this particular route. Now let's go to the second option. Now under this second option, which is private life route, under the immigration rule, you are accessed for indefinite leave to remain based on your private life. That's based on the life you've lived in the UK for as long as you've been in the UK. It's not only about how long you've been now, but they are going to assess you based on the kind of life you have lived. When I say the kind of life you have lived, read my lips, you will understand what that means. Depending on whether there is any advert or negative record about you in the UK, criminal record or whatever. You are assessed based on this. Now, this applies to both children and also adults. In respect of children, if you are born in the UK and you are up to 7 years, that is from the time of your birth. You know, there is no automatic citizenship by birth in the UK, not anymore. But by birth, from your birth to your 7th year birthday, if you've been in the UK without leaving, then automatically you qualify for indefinite leave to remain under private life route. But when it comes to adults, the rules are completely different, and I will explain that in a bit. Now, as an adult, that is having attained the age of 18 years, that is the age of adulthood in the UK. If you missed the opportunity to have gotten your ILR under the first category, which is as a child, if you were born in the UK, 7 years after, automatically you are. But there are people who can come into the UK, they were not born in the UK, but they were brought into the UK still as a child. But now they are applying to get ILR when they have already become an adult, that is from the age of 18 years. In the second category, I want to discuss how it applies to young adults. That's people who are between the age of 18 and 24 years. You can still obtain ILR if three major conditions are met. That is, if these are true in respect of your own personal circumstances. This here, I want to read it out to your hearing. Number 1 conditionality is, as a young adult between the ages of 18 and 24 years, you are given a visa in the UK on the basis of your personal life. Let me explain that to my own understanding. Do not forget that whatever it is you are hearing from me on this channel, as much as I try to explain, is to the extent that I understand. None of them must be taken to you by you as a professional advice. None of them must be considered by you as a legal opinion in any way. Where you need advice, go and seek a qualified and licensed legal attorney or immigration advisor to provide you something that is specific to your own personal circumstances. So let me explain this to my own understanding, which is one condition you must meet as a young adult to obtain your indefinite leave to remain under this private life route. You must have been offered UK visa. Remember that you are already living in the UK, but in the course of living in the UK, you have renewed your visa. You know, there are many visas you can use to stay in the UK. You have renewed a visa between the age of 18 years and 24 years, no matter the category of visa. It could be visa as a dependent of an adult. It could be visa in any category, but you've been accessed and you've been given a visa within this age bracket, 18 and 24 years. That is condition number 1. Then condition number 2, you arrived in the UK as a child. Then condition number 3, you have lived in the UK for 5 continuous years lawfully. Lawfully. That is important. How you live in the UK matters. If you are in the UK hiding, you are not under a legitimate lawful visa, then that is not lawful. If you've been here lawfully for 5 years, and the other two conditions I mentioned, which I'm sure should be showing on your screen right now, if all these three conditionalities are met, then as a young adult, you qualify for indefinite leave to remain in the UK. Now, as it applies to all other adults, which is still someone from the age of 18. I want to read out the three conditions that you must meet. Because even if you've missed the first category, which is being born in the UK, you get it after 7 years, or you were not born in the UK, you came into the UK as a child, but you've renewed a visa when you were between the age of 18 and 24, and you've lived in the UK for a continuous years of 5 years without leaving, you can meet the second category. Then this third one is when you have missed these two categories. The condition you must meet, which I'm sure must be showing on your screen right now, you are at least 18 years of age, which is what I said before. That's the beginning of adulthood in the UK. Then number three, you have previously gotten a visa while in the UK on the basis of your private life for at least 1 year on the day you apply for ILR. Even in the UK, you do not have ILR. There are ways you can renew your visa. That is what they call 10-year pathway, which means you continue to renew your visa based on certain conditions you meet. I think once for each time you renew your visa for 2 years, 2.5 years, which you pay about 2,000 something, 2,000 pounds and some additional fractions on it. It's a very, very expensive route. So you've been renewing your visa like this in the UK. You've been assessed on each occasion and you've been considered worthy or eligible for this visa renewals. It is going into your record. It is a positive for you. That is what that number two item you're seeing on the screen means. Then number four is that you've lived in the UK continuously for 10 years with a visa. This is similar to the 10-year rule, which I said in category number one, which is, yeah, 10-year route. So I've given you two basic routes, two important routes now through which you can get ILR in the UK. Then number three is work visa route. This is a very popular route. I'm not going to waste much time on it. I know most of you might already have an insight into it. It's what is very popular at the moment. You getting and a job offer in the UK, whether you are living outside of the UK, might be in your home country at the moment, you get a UK employer who sponsors you to UK with a job offer. You come in the UK to live and to work. After a particular period of time, you are entitled to go for your ILR. Most of you are already on this route. Even in the UK, you can key into this route and begin to count your number of years. But one thing I must not ignore is is what is really the cardinal principle of this particular route, which is the fact that you must have been on this route for not less than 5 years. Some of this sponsorship can be 3 years, some can be 2 years, some can be 4 years. But I think most common ones you see is 3 and 5 years. After 3 years, you cannot go for ILR. You must have been in the UK for 5 years before you now apply for ILR, even under this work visa route. The fourth one I want to discuss is family route. Now, what is family route? This is a route that allows you to acquire indefinite leave to remain in the UK by virtue of being a relative to someone who is already settled in the UK. The relationship can spans in various categories. It could be a spousal relationship, it could be the wife or the husband, whichever is the case in your own circumstances. It could be a brother, it could be a sister, an uncle, a son, parents, whatever relationship. As long as the person you are dependent on is already settled in the UK as a British citizen or someone with indefinite leave to remain, you can come under them to apply for your own indefinite leave to remain. How will you apply or the your eligibility criteria that would apply to you specifically depends on how you came into the UK or the immigration status of the person you are depending on. But one thing I need to let you know here is that it is inconsequential that whatever relationship you are counting on does not exist anymore. Even if you're assuming you're counting on spousal relationship, even if your spouse is dead, you are the wife, your husband is dead, or you are the husband, your wife is dead, is of no moment. You can still depend on previous relationship to apply for your indefinite leave to remain in the UK. It is also worthy of note that if this relationship has ended, even though both parties are still alive, but it ended maybe based on domestic violence or anything of that manner, you can still come under this rule to apply for independent leave to indefinite leave to remain. I keep making this mistake. That is why I should rather be saying ILR instead of calling it in full. So, based on domestic violence, you can still get your ILR to remain in the UK. But some other things, actually, some other factors will also come into play. That is, and this area I cannot go into detail. That is where you would need a specific advice, something that is tailored to you as a person, your own circumstances. And that is why you will need to seek and obtain the services of a qualified and licensed solicitor nearest to you to get further advice. And this is where I come to the end of this briefing. Note that there are so many other ways you can obtain your ILR, like I said in the beginning, but I did not mention all of them in this briefing simply because what I have chosen I know is what relates to most of my audience. So there's no point of boring you with other details that does not concern you or that will cost you a lot more than the conditionalities that I've already mentioned here, which most of which are as simple as ABC. You can also obtain more insight to everything I've discussed in an article I have linked in the description to this video. It's at the bottom. Click on the link and go to the article and get more insight and possibly link to other websites, home office websites that can give you more elaborate understanding of all these issues. I want to thank you so much for being part of this episode. But before I go, may I plead that you show some love. If you have in any way benefited from this content, please do like it now. And if you have not, please also share it on your social media network so that others can come in contact and then also benefit from it. If you have not subscribed to my channel, show some love, please. Do subscribe to the channel and encourage me to do more. If you're already a subscriber to my channel, thank you so much for your support and for being part of the journey.